Aldine's District Staff Development. Today we will provide an overview of the instructional framework. Today's objectives are that participants will know the components of the instructional framework, focus strategies, and what differentiation is in a lesson. We will understand how the instructional framework and differentiated lessons will help to meet the needs of all learners, and we will be able to explain in detail how to differentiate lessons. What is an instructional framework? First, let's review Aldine's instructional framework. The Aldine Independent School District Instructional Framework contains an instructional model and strategies. The model and strategies come from various research-based models such as classroom instruction that works, sheltered instruction observation protocol, universal design for learning, and much more. Aldine created their own framework that would be best for our students to provide diverse and equitable learning. This is the complete instructional framework. Our framework is centered around student learning. When we plan, we should consider the content, strategies, evidence to check for understanding, and how we will respond. We then have the 6-part gradual release model that guides teachers to have an in-depth lesson plan. Outside the gradual release, we have 12 different strategies. Let's review the gradual release model. Our district has adopted 6 parts of the gradual release model. Take a look at the slide or your handout that is provided. As you create lessons for your students, you will use the instructional model gradual release with these 6 parts. I will give you a couple of minutes to look over the handout. You may pause the video. The gradual release will help students to retain more information. Look at the pyramid and discuss at your table what you notice. Discuss a time when you had a discussion group, had students practice by doing, or had them teach others. What were your results? Hit pause and discuss at the table. We want to make sure our students are retaining as much information as possible. If you give them an opportunity to incorporate the we do and you do, we know our students will be more successful. In 2021, we started to roll out strategies. Our original plan was to roll out 4 strategies a year. However, we wanted to send out a survey to better meet the needs of our campuses. The results indicated that they wanted to spend more time in setting objectives and providing feedback, cues, questions, and graphic organizers, and differentiated instruction. Let's review setting objectives and providing feedback. Teachers must set objectives and provide feedback to students on the learning, so students will understand the purpose, build a coherent understanding, and develop high levels of skill. Your content program directors will train you in setting objectives and providing feedback. You will have the opportunity to learn the expectations and how to apply this strategy in your teaching. Using cues, questions, and graphic organizers will help focus learning on the important content by motivating students and tapping into their curiosity and interest. Higher order questions and critical thinking skills can help students deepen their knowledge. Again, your content program directors will explicitly provide information on cues, questions, and graphic organizers that are relevant in your lessons. What is differentiation? Effective teaching involves consideration for learner variability by making adjustments in the instructional elements and provide all students, regardless of differences in ability, within their diverse classroom community of learners, a range of different avenues for understanding new information in terms of content, what the student learns, process, how the student learns, and product, the end result of learning. Let's watch this video. As you watch this video, take notes on the graphic organizer provided on how the teacher differentiated in the areas of content, process, and product.
I'm Larry Filazzo. Differentiating instruction. To some educators, it conjures visions of having to create a different lesson for every student in the room and long nights of planning and grading. That insanity is not what differentiation is all about. Differentiating instruction is really a way of thinking, not a pre-planned list of strategies. Oftentimes, it is making decisions in the moment based on this mindset. It's recognizing that, to paraphrase Rick Wormerly, fair doesn't always mean treating everyone equally. It's recognizing that all of our students bring different gifts and challenges, and that as educators, we need to recognize those differences and use our professional judgment to flexibly respond to them in our teaching. Carol Tomlinson talks about the ability to differentiate in three areas: content, process, and product. For content, student choice is one way we might differentiate, like allowing students to choose their research topics or essay prompts. As teachers, we need to keep our eyes on the prize. In other words, we have to keep asking ourselves, what are the main learning objectives? One day, my students were writing an argument essay about what would be the worst natural disaster to experience. John's head was down the desk. He was not doing anything. I knew that he was interested in football, so I told him that he could write an essay on why his favorite team was the best. He would still have to make an argument just about football instead of hurricanes or earthquakes. His eyes lit up. He got to work and wrote what his mother later told me was the first essay he had ever written in school. He had followed all the guidelines of a good argument essay. The prize, in this case, was learning to write an argument essay, not learning to write about natural disasters. To differentiate by process, teachers can change up how they group students. Sometimes a mixed ability group might work best, while sometimes it might be appropriate to have same ability groups. We might have an English proficient buddy work with an English language learner to help them out. During independent reading time in my early morning class several years ago, one student tended to fall asleep. I told him that if he wanted, he could go to the back and sit on a desk and read. Soon, several others joined him. A few days later, I saw another student dozing off. Before I could say anything, one of his classmates whispered to him, "Just go sit on a desk." Again, it's a matter of keeping our eyes on the prize. What are the learning objectives and what are the best roads to get there for different students? Teachers can also differentiate by the type of product students create. The major demonstration of learning doesn't always have to be an essay or a multiple choice test. One year I had a student who liked to doodle when other students or I were talking. I told her it was okay as long as she was doodling about the information we were discussing. She built on those doodles to create a final project that brilliantly and visually represented all the key points we had covered. When I give tests, I often give students an extra blank page where they can write anything else they remember about the topic being tested that they think is important. I often find the quality of thinking and writing better there than in response to my test questions. None of the differentiating strategies I've mentioned have created any extra work for me. They did require that I had relationships with my students to know their strengths, challenges, and interests. And I needed to demonstrate flexibility in my thinking. Making these strategies successful also required building a strong class culture so that some of the students were being treated differently and they understood why. And they understood that that was the only way to be truly fair.
Now that you have watched the video, we are going to engage in an elevation activity called Do You Know? To deepen our understanding in differentiation. Read and review questions on the graphic organizer, discuss and answer a question about previously learned content with a peer, move around the room and discuss and answer each question with a different peer. So yes, you will have 4 different partners. Negotiate meaning and collaboratively discuss questions and write answers. You may pause the video so teachers can interact in this activity. Don't forget to share out some great information. Welcome back. As you apply the Aldine Instructional Framework, our focus strategies for this year, and differentiated lessons, we know your lessons will be a success and your students will be too. Let's review our objectives to see if we reach the goals of today's presentation. Now you should know the components of the instructional framework, focus strategies, and what differentiation is in a lesson. You should now understand how the instructional framework and differentiated lessons will help to meet the needs of all learners. And hopefully you explained in detail how to differentiate lessons. This concludes this presentation. As we visit your classrooms, we are excited to see the instructional framework, our focus strategies, and differentiated lessons. Have a wonderful school year.